So the Twilight Saga, New Moon. I don't know how, but even though I said numerous negative things about the first Twilight movie, they somehow managed to find a way to make it worse. New Moon, even less happens in this movie. The acting is worse. The story is even farther removed from audience interest. The effects are worse. I don't understand how they did it. The characters are more unlikable, but I suppose I should start at the beginning. Alright, well, Bella, still played by Kristen Stewart, is turning 18, and she does not want a birthday party. She does not want any presents, because apparently she's afraid that she's basically having this kind of midlife crisis-esque episode where she's like, I'm 1 year older than Edward. He's gonna be 17 forever, and I'm gonna be an old prune. She's worrying about this at age 18, which is just physically is not much different than 17. Just in terms of physical changes to your body. So I don't know why she's having this type of I don't know why she's having this episode, but she's having it. So everyone is wishing her happy birthday. Everyone is getting her presents, and when she goes to a little birthday party at the Cullens vampire family's house, as she is opening up, I think she's opening up a card or something. It's either a card or a present. She gashes her finger open on the paper. They try to say it's paper cut, but it's literally leaking blood. There's like a stream of blood running down her finger. So this sets off one of the vampires. I forget his name. It's the Harpo guy. The guy that's dating the Ashley Greene character, the Alice chick, the future scene chick. He starts freaking out because apparently he's the youngest and the least experienced of the group. So he charges toward Bella. He's gonna eat Bella, but Edward, for some reason, pushes Bella through the air into a glass table. I guess it was meant to get her out of the way, but it just served to, instead of blood coming from her finger, her arm is gashed open on all sorts of broken glass. So yeah, not helping the situation. So eventually the family patriarch, Carlisle, has to take her into a separate room and stitch her up, because apparently he's been away from human blood long enough to resist its pull. I'm tired. I'm sorry. This movie made me tired. So Edward, we never really see the consent of his family. I mean his family seems fine. His family doesn't really seem, we never really see their support of this decision, but Edward basically takes Bella out into the woods and says it's too dangerous for us to still be together. I just love you too much. so I'm going away. And Bella's like, but you can't go away. But you can't go away. And Edward's like, I don't want you. You will never see me again. And as the audience, we're going, yay! But Edward takes off at vampiric speed, and Bella collapses in the woods looking for him. So she goes through literally months. You actually see a panning shot where she's kind of sitting at her bedroom window looking all depressed. She goes through months of just intense depression and waking up screaming in the middle of the night, and being completely unsociable. She's separated herself from her supposed friends at school. I mean, she doesn't really seem to like these people, like Anna Kendrick and all them. But I digress. She basically, not really a very good argument for feminism. She is so dependent on Edward that when he is removed from her life, she completely breaks down. She completely slumps into this pathetic state. And right away, they waste no time in making Bella even more unlikable than she was in the first one. Because in the first one, she had no reason to be the emo chick that she was. She had no reason to have the attitude that she had, because her life was basically, good things were basically being handed to her on a plate. She had a few minor problems, or relatively minor problems, like her parents being separated, but everyone was completely willing to welcome her in with open arms. Same as in this movie. And yeah, you just couldn't understand her mindset or her attitude in the first movie. This movie, every single one of the characters thinks it's something real serious when she breaks down and starts having these fits, these crying fits in the middle of the night. She wakes up screaming, sounding like an injured goat, and everyone thinks it's something really scary and serious. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. This is not anything new. This is teenage melodrama. This is the equivalent of a child not getting a toy that they wanted and throwing a temper tantrum. It is amazing how petulant and whiny Bella is in this movie. Does she really have to settle for Edward? Really? What did he ever do for her? He left for no reason. And when they were together, all they did was stare at each other. That's all they did. So I find it hard to believe that someone like her could not find any other guy, be it in Forks or in or somewhere else. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. But her dad eventually, and this is another case where the dad is the most sympathetic character in the movie. Billy Burke still remains my favorite character, my favorite actor going through these movies, because he is his reactions feel genuine, they feel real. I still don't understand his compassion toward this diabolical leech that he has for a daughter. But he he keeps having to wake up in the middle of the night and calm her down, and eventually he says, no, you're going to Jacksonville to live with your mother. I don't want to deal with this anymore. This is scary to me. And it takes her all of 2 seconds to dissuade him from this. She's like, I want to stay in Forks. I need a girls' night out with my friends. And Billy Burke is like, he's like, oh, okay. So apparently, oh my god. Eventually Bella discovers that when she puts herself in danger, this spectral vision of Edward shows up out of nowhere to try and talk her out of whatever danger she is getting herself into. Right out of Star Wars, this thing. Is it real? Is it not? I mean, is Edward really there? Is he just a figment of Bella's imagination? These are thought-provoking questions that the movie never bothers to bring it up because true love. So upon doing this, again, feminism marches on here. Bella, in order to continue seeing this spectral, ethereal Edward, becomes an adrenaline junkie. She vows to continuously put herself in ridiculous situations in ridiculous life-threatening situations, just so she can get a glimpse of this ghost thing. Okay. I suppose that's easier than just finding another guy. Or maybe considering that, hey, I don't need this pale jerk-off deciding everything that I do. But here's the point where Bella goes from just being an unlikable, petulant little toad to just being a very cruel witch. Not a magic witch, just I'll get to it in a second. She goes to her friend Jacob, who lives on the Indian reservation or Native American reservation. And she brings him a bunch of spare motorcycle parts, and she basically tells him, "Look, these motorcycles, they will take weeks to fix, weeks if not months to fix. It will take a lot of your valuable time, and I've never expressed any interest in motorcycles before, but I would be so grateful if you just fixed them up for me, and we could spend afternoons together while you fixed them up." And her ultimate purpose in this is to ride these motorcycles and see the spectral vision of Edward, because she just has to see him. And Jacob, actually Jacob is another somewhat likable character in this movie, at least earlier in the movie, where he's not bright, because he basically says, "Oh, okay, all right, I'll fix up these motorcycles for you," and he's basically being the supportive friend. He's being the supportive guy. But I think in his mind he's kind of thinking he's going to be the rebound. But Bella, without ever considering that this guy has feelings, proceeds to string Jacob along for weeks kind of giving him minor hints that maybe he has a shot, but then as soon as he's about to score, as soon as he's about to make a little trip to first base, she completely takes that chance away from him. It's like dangling a piece of cheese in front of his face, and then when he's about to get it, she yanks it away. It's like that, except crueler. She toys with this guy, and as comparatively likable as he is, it's kind of hard to really continually feel bad for him when he constantly falls for her passive-aggressive routine, when he constantly falls for this chipmunk tooth, whiny, stuttering, mumbling little leech. Oh my god, I hated this movie. But eventually, I guess it must be just her. It must be by pure coincidence. Jacob reveals that he comes from a line of Native Americans who can transform into wolves. They try and tell you that they're werewolves, but they're not. They're not werewolves. They're these giant, fake-looking CGI wolves. And he and the other Native American wolves are basically designed to hunt and kill vampires. And the only reason they have not touched the Cullens up to this point is because apparently years back they made a treaty. Again, why didn't the Cullens just move sooner? I mean, if they were coming into conflict with these wolves to the point of having to establish a treaty, why didn't they move sooner? And why did it take them one minor incident with Bella to finally get the Actually, no. Here's I remembered why. They didn't move. It's because the family patriarch Carlisle, he did not age. I mean, he and his children were not aging, and people were beginning to ask questions. Remember this for later, because this is going to come back later in a plot hole so large that the entire movie basically goes from a whimpering, dying movie to one that completely collapses in on itself. So Jacob and his Native American werewolves, they must be allergic to shirts or something, because even when there is no reason for them to be shirtless, they are shirtless. It gets a little weird when you see this band of shirtless guys kind of wrestling around and acting all chummy with each other, and even some of the dialogue when Bella's like, "Can't you just stop being a werewolf?" and Jacob's like, it's not a life choice, Bella. I was born this way. I'm in it for life. And I'm watching this movie thinking, are the werewolves an allegory for gayness? I mean, does Stephanie Meyer even know what the word allegory means? Because I'm not trying to bring up the I'm not trying to raise the specter of homosexuality in movies every time something peculiar like this turns up, but just some of the dialogue and the way these guys act, and the way that other people react to them, it really seems like they are channeling. It really seems like they are channeling some type of real life homosexual influence in Stephanie Meyer's life. I don't know how that homosexual person would feel being represented this way in her Twilight books, but oh my god, this. And the wolves themselves, again, they are not werewolves. The title doesn't even make sense. There are no new moons in this movie. And the wolves do not transform into wolves. The Native Americans do not transform into wolves at the sight of a full moon. At the sight of any moon, really. They can just do it on the fly. I mean, they rip out of their clothes like the Incredible Hulk and transform into these really fake CG wolves. And the effects in the first Twilight, like I said, were not good, but at least there was nothing this laughably cheesy in there, because these wolves, you do not believe for a second that they are really there. This is kind of like Sci-Fi Channel special effects. This is the type of special effects that you would see on some I don't know. I'm trying to think of a comparison. This is the type of special effects that you would see on Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, or even the live action, the first live action Dungeons and Dragons movie. It's basically that same caliber of effects. But moving on. Eventually, I don't mean to go into spoiler territory, or I didn't originally intend to go into spoiler territory, but I think this movie is 4 years old. I don't think anyone's going to care if I spoil Twilight. So Bella eventually gets word that after once again trying to elicit a vision of the spectral ghost Edward, she jumps off a cliff into the water, and Alice, the future-seeing vampire, she thinks that Bella is dead. If only. But Edward gets all distraught. He gets really sad, and he basically goes to the Vampire High Council called the Volturi in Italy, and basically says, "I don't want to live anymore. Could you kill me, please?" And they're like, "Nah, your gifts are too precious." And he's like, "Okay, well, you know what I'm gonna do is at the Italian anti-vampire festival, or something like that. I'm going to take my shirt off and expose my glittery skin to the whole world." Why he thinks that people will associate this with vampirism, I don't know, but apparently this will lead to the penalty of having him killed by the Volturi. Now, if the Volturi know that he is going to do this, and they know that they will be required by law to kill him afterwards, why do they refuse to kill him after he threatens to do this? Again, makes no sense. So Bella, ignoring the months of emotional turmoil that this really self-centered guy has put her through, she and Alice booked this last second flight to Italy. We never see them go through customs. We never see them do anything of the sort. We never see them get their passports. It's just they're in Italy all of a sudden. So they booked this last-minute trip to Italy, costing who knows how much, so Bella can stop Edward from exposing himself to the numerous Italian robe-wearing anti-vampire people. Now, if they were really anti-vampire, one would think that they would know what an actual vampire is, and would subsequently disassociate an actual vampire with sparkling, but again, I digress. But yeah, this movie, the acting, like I said, is much worse, or not much worse, but it is worse than the first Twilight movie, because Kristen Stewart still cannot act worth a flip. She still stutters, she mumbles, she stares, she blinks 90 times a minute. It gets really irritating, but in addition to that, her and Edward, not the rest of the characters, because the rest of the characters don't do this. Her and Edward, for no reason, take these gargantuan pauses in the middle of sentences that could be said without any effort. They pause more than William Shatner. And I know I'm not exactly the best example of how not to do pauses in the middle of sentences, but as much as I pause to think about what I'm going to say next, I do not pause as much as these guys. They pause at even the shortest sentences, the sentences that should be second nature. They pause for no reason, and it makes the whole movie feel so much longer. It probably does make the movie longer by at least a few minutes, with all these gargantuan pauses. They cannot say a single complete sentence without a pause. So Kristen Stewart is still very terrible. Robert Pattinson is very terrible. He looks baked out of his mind half the time. He also does the pauses, although it's a little less noticeable considering he's not really in the movie that much. Taylor Lautner, again, one of the only somewhat likable characters in this movie. He's actually trying to pull something off. He's actually trying to do something with this very stupid character that he's playing. I really bought him as this supportive friend, but the point where they lost me on his character was about the point where he undergoes werewolf puberty, because he starts going through these mood swings, and eventually he cuts off his shoulder length hair or his back length hair and gets a tattoo on his arm and becomes allergic to shirts. And at that point, for some reason, he says, "I'm in the pack for life. I can't see you anymore." So at first you're thinking, is he doing the Edward thing? Is he going to be this? Is she going to go into another fit of is she going to go into another fit of codependent rage? But for seemingly no reason, she sees him again. She sees Jacob again because I guess for some reason the pack does not forbid him from seeing her anymore, because they never give any reason why he can suddenly talk to her again. They hold that tension for all of 10 minutes. So yeah. I'm losing my voice. Oh God. Oh, and you know the really fruity vampires from the first Twilight movie, and how the Victoria chick, the Rochelle chick. Well, she's back in this movie. They make this whole big deal about how she's coming to kill Bella because Edward killed James, and and they do a scene where the werewolves, no, they're not werewolves, where the fake wolves are chasing her through the woods, and it should be this very exciting scene, but there's this very mopey music playing in the background, so very odd scene, really. There's a scene where the wolves are chasing her through the woods. She leaps into the ocean, and after doing this almost Jaws type jump scare, or Jaws type almost this Jaws-esque scene where she's kind of swimming toward Bella when Bella tries to kill herself by jumping off the mountain into the water. You never see Victoria again. That was 10 minutes that went absolutely nowhere. They just forget about that plot line completely. They completely forget. The incompetence here is stunning. I mean, it's ridiculous how incompetent this writing is. I don't know if this was the way it was in the book, but I'm going to assume it was, and I'm going to assume that these really stupid concepts, their origins are in the books. Okay, so this I don't know what I was talking about. This really pointless plot line only serves to waste time and pad out the movie's runtime even longer. This thing is like 2 hours and 10 minutes, and it feels like it because as you could probably guess from the little plot synopsis that I gave, nothing happens in this movie, or it feels like nothing happens for long stretches. There are long stretches where you just see Bella interacting pointlessly with one of her peers or one of the other characters, not advancing the plot at all, not serving to develop any character at all, only serving to add another scene where Kristen Stewart fails to act. Oh, and I don't even know where the whole Volturi thing came from, because the Volturi are just these really. You thought the vampires in the first movie were ridiculous. These Volturi blow those vampires out of the water with how fruity and stereotypically gay they are. They are. I mean, I don't mean to use that term. When I say that, I mean gay as in happy. But these Volturi literally sit on their thrones in these kind of slouched positions. Two of them do this, and the other one, who is played by Michael Sheen of all people, is this really over the top, really frilly guy with really long hair, and he's like, "Oh, isn't this wonderful? Bella is alive after all. Oh yes." I'm looking at this guy thinking, is this supposed to be the bad guy? Because they could not have chosen anyone less intimidating. They could not have. This guy could not have given a less menacing performance. Oh my god. I mean, he prances around. He reads people's minds by physical contact. He does the same thing as Edward does. He reads people's minds. He's like Professor X, but he does it by taking one of their hands in his hands and kind of doing this almost orgasm type face, where where he's just like, oh, oh yes, that is lovely. Oh my god, this movie. And Dakota Fanning's there too. She's one of the Volturi. And Dakota Fanning, I'm not a Dakota Fanning fan, but I can see why a lot of people consider her to be a good actress. What is she doing here? Especially on this character that literally does nothing. All she does, her vampire power is this kind of telepathic pain. I mean, she can think about someone getting hurt, and all of a sudden this jolting pain shoots through them. I guess it saves you on post-production work, in that you don't have to add any kind of effect if they're just feeling pain. But Dakota Fanning, all she does is she just stands there. She doesn't do anything. She's not given a chance to emote. She's not given a chance to exhibit any kind of emotion. She's not given a chance to be creepy. She just kind of stands there. And you're distracted because you're going, is that Dakota Fanning? Followed by the question of, why is she in this movie? And the movie never answers this. There's no reason for that character to be played by Dakota Fanning, because, again, she doesn't do anything. This movie teases you at several intervals with better movies. Because when Bella finally does start talking to her friends again after going through months of depression about Edward, the really prissy guy, the really prissy blonde-haired guy who sits at her table, he's like Bella, I just wanted to know if you wanted to see this new romantic comedy that's coming out. It's supposed to be really good. And Bella's like, no, I want to go see Face Punch. I mean, are you guys familiar with Face Punch? It's an action movie, and they're like, and the prissy blonde guy is like, oh, okay, I can go see Face Punch. So this really stock movie title that they pulled right out of nowhere. They go and for some reason Bella invites Jacob also. So Bella and Jacob are sitting there just kind of enjoying what the very macabre images that are being projected on screen. You don't see anything, but the sounds you hear on screen are this very cartoonish, over the top violence. It's like a Robert Rodriguez or a Quentin Tarantino flick, where you just hear people getting blown away on screen and just screaming in agony. And the really prissy guy is just kind of sitting there like, oh my god, this is killing me. And eventually he gets up because he has to vomit. And I'm thinking to myself, whatever deplorable images that they are projecting on screen, I guarantee you is more interesting than what we are watching. I will challenge you on the question of whether or not this throwaway movie that they probably put no thought into is better than the actual movie that we're watching, because I am willing to bet money that it is. And actually, another instance where they tease us with a better story is at the beginning, where this movie actually has the audacity to compare the love story of Edward and Bella, these two idiots, to Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, because they're reading Romeo and Juliet, and Edward and Bella are sitting next together with a hardcover copy of Romeo and Juliet sitting at their desk, and while this is happening, they're sitting in class, and the whole class watching one of the many iterations of one of the many film iterations of Romeo and Juliet, and the camera focuses on the screen, on the TV screen for a second, and then slowly pans to Edward and Bella, and I'm like, no, pan back. Even if this is the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet, even if this is one of the least esteemed Romeo and Juliet adaptations out there, I guarantee you it's better than this. Go back, pan the camera back. I want to watch the other movie. So that happens, and probably the most insulting moment for me in this movie was when they killed off Graham Greene. And Graham Greene did nothing in the first movie. I mean, he plays Billy Burke's friend. I mean, he plays one of the Native Americans. And what happens is after Bella tells them there are wolves running around in the woods, he and Billy Burke go through the woods on this little hunting expedition. Roll with it. And Victoria shows up out of nowhere, grabs Graham Greene by the collar, and even after she is tackled by one of the wolves, Billy Burke is oblivious to all of this. Graham Greene starts having a heart attack, and you learn later that he died off screen. And it should be this very sad moment. It should be this very heartbreaking moment. But even if they had bothered to develop this guy past the status of background character, it wouldn't have made any difference, because what are the characters focusing on at this point? They are focusing on the really stupid love affair between Edward and Bella. They're focusing on Jacob's attempts to make Bella happy. They're focusing on Bella going to Italy to see Edward instead of staying for Graham Greene's funeral. Instead of going through any type of mourning. I mean, the movie forgets about him as soon as he's killed off. I mean, all the characters forget about him. I mean, it's really kind of insulting, because here goes another actor in these movies that is completely wasted. But at least Graham Greene doesn't have to come back for any of the sequels. That's a good thing. This movie sucked. This movie, the pacing was unbelievably slow. 2 hours and 10 minutes. Way too long for this trash. Like I said, the characters are very unlikable. Bella continuously toying with Jacob to the point where he is begging her to please give me a chance, don't go back to the vampire guy. And Bella continuously keeps wanting Edward despite the emotional abuse that he puts her through. And like I said, basically throwing a tantrum every time she doesn't get what she wants. And completely disregarding any input from her family about, like, you know, maybe this is not healthy, maybe you should not be obsessing over this guy. She completely ignores this and keeps her singular goal in mind of wanting to get Edward back. I keep bringing this back to the issue of feminism, but really, what kind of strong, independent woman does this, and what kind of a role model is Bella? I mean, she puts herself in these life-threatening situations just on the off chance that she will see this spectral vision of a guy that she wants, of her ex-boyfriend. Is that really the type of example that one should set? Is that really the type of character that we should get behind? This is supposed to be our main protagonist, and she is a petulant little idiot. We're supposed to be completely behind her, we're supposed to care about what happens to her, but how can we when she makes all these stupid decisions, when she does not follow any line of rational thought, when she does not stop for a second and think you know, maybe I don't need this jerky vampire as much as I am letting on. Maybe I can move on with my life. Maybe I can use this as a learning experience. Maybe I can use this to grow as a person. Maybe I can give this werewolf guy a chance, see how it works out. But no, she keeps wanting the vampire guy. And I don't get that. I don't get what is supposed to be so special about these two, because when they are together, they like I said, they lack any semblance of chemistry. They just stare at each other. They take these gargantuan pauses in the middle of sentences where a pause is completely unwarranted. It's agonizing when they are together. It's agonizing for the audience because they do not look happy. Neither one of them look happy to see each other. They just look very pained. And was that supposed to be the idea, that they love each other, that they love each other so much that it hurts? Because that is some soap opera bull crap. That is some really grade A stupid. Oh my god, this movie. The effects are laughable. The story, and the characters are completely removed from any audience investment. Once again, Billy Burke plays the only likable character, and these last-minute villains, the Volturi, come right out of nowhere. I mean, the movie did briefly mention them at the beginning, but not to the point where we should actually fear them as a legitimate threat at the end of the movie, because it's not like they had gotten any development before then. I'm repeating myself at this point. The characters are just so unlikable. Again, except for Billy Burke. But even Billy Burke, he must have some kind of, his character must have some type of slim hope that maybe his daughter will stop being this diabolical fiend and become, I don't know, a human being. But it's a lost cause. Unbeknownst to him, any love for his daughter is completely squandered on this buck-toothed, whiny, codependent little worm. This movie is worse than the first one. The effects are worse, the acting is worse, the story is worse, the pacing is worse, the music is worse. The music, at least occasionally in the first Twilight movie, the music tried to inject some kind of stylized, kind of dark teenage energy into the movie. Here, it's just a bunch of piano and sad music. It's a bunch of piano. It's a bunch of piano tunes and other type of sad sounding instruments that just suck the energy out. There are plot lines that go nowhere. And once again, I am left completely baffled as to how anyone in their right mind, how any sane person could actually think that this is a good story. And this is the real cynical jerk in me coming out right now, because this is me going against my usual mindset of a person can like a movie that I don't like, and I can see where they're coming from. I mean, as long as they can explain it to me, as long as they can have a civilized conversation with me about why they like the movie, and not try to insult me, or not trying. I mean, as long as there is no as long as there's no as long as there's no name calling, or and is not as long as there's no instance of like you are a bad person for liking or disliking this movie from either side. But honestly, I cannot see the appeal at all. I mean, is it just because of the shirtless guys? Because there are ways of seeing that type of stuff. There are ways of seeing those types of images without paying for a movie ticket. It's called the internet. I hate this movie. I hate the Twilight series with a fiery passion. These Twilight movies are really stupid. And I'm glad they're done, but I got 3 more of these to do.